Hey crafters, thanks for joining me. In this video, I'm making a Swish and Pop card featuring some old and new Lawn Fawn products. Hope you enjoy. So I started this card with a piece of paper that's 5 by 7 inches, and I wanted to blend some colors on the background to make a very pastel-y background. It could be sunset or it could be the middle of the day. So I started with some antique linen distress ink at the top of the card and blended this across the top quarter or so. And then I added some twisted citron underneath this. And I really love this color combination. It's very subtle, but it makes a nice scene for the stamp images that I will add on later on. Then I went back with my antique linen and blended these two colors together, and then added some Salvaged Patina distress ink underneath. Now when you add Salvaged Patina distress ink to the twisted citron, you get a really magical color in between, as you can see here. And I just love that color combination. So I'm going to continue putting the Salvaged Patina all the way across, and then go back in with some more twisted citron just to brighten up that second color there. And then the last color I'm going to add on the bottom there is some shaded lilac. And I'll just put this along the bottom. So even though I've only added 4 colors of ink, you kind of see at least 5 different distinct colors on this background. That's why I love using distress inks. So once I'm happy with that shaded lilac, I'll go in with a tiny bit more Salvaged Patina to blend them all together. And then I'll set this background aside to dry completely. Once it's dry, I'm going to add on the Scene Builder stencil. This one's called Bayou, and I'll put it in the middle of the card. Now this was made for a slightly smaller card, so I'm going to use a little bit of post-it note tape on the edge, just so that I don't accidentally get any of my ink on the left side. And then I'll add some Rustic Wilderness Distress ink over those vines. And once I've added enough onto that side, I can move my post-it note to the other side just to protect the right side of the card as well. And then to continue the vine pattern past the stencil, I'm just going to move it slightly so that I've got room for about 2 more stenciled vines on either side. And I'll just use the same post-it note tape to cover up the vines I've already added in. And then I'll repeat this on the left-hand side of the card as well. So what I'm left with is a beautiful stenciled vine along the whole of my background. Now there's a second part of this stencil that has little flowers on it. So I'm just going to line that up. It's easier to see the markings and grid lines in real life. And then once I'm happy with that, I'll use my magnets and post-it note tape and add in some ink over those flowered areas. So I'm going to use some Wilted Violet Distress ink, and I thought this would help to tie in that shaded lilac that's at the very bottom of the blended background as well. And then I'm going to move my post-it note to the other side and just repeat what I did with the vines so that I have a beautifully stenciled background. Now I did try using shaded lilac or lighter colors on the top, but they don't really show up over the ink that's already laid down. So when you have more than one distress color, you kind of need a darker color like this Wilted Violet to stand out over top of the antique linen and twisted citron. So once I'm finished using that, you can see the beautiful background, perfect for some beavers. Now for the bottom of the card, I'm going to use this strip of paper that's the same length as my card, and just tear it to create a watery effect. Then I'm going to paint it. I'm using the Gamzai Tambi gem color. This one is called the Pearl Cobalt Blue. And I'm just going to mix in some water and then paint this over the whole piece of this paper. And then once I've painted this paper, I will dry it with my heat tool. And the great thing about using paint like this is that it has lots of mica in it, so it's very beautiful and almost pearlescent in real life. And the stamps that I used for this card, most of them came from the Would You Be Mine stamp set. I used all of the beaver images, and then I also stamped the tree with a heart engraved in it. And then I stamped the main log, but I wanted to create a different style for this tree. So what I did is I masked the bottom of it and just added ink to the top. And I used that same Post-it note tape to mask. And then when I stamped it, you can see the bottom of it is missing. So I lined up that other stamp that has the chewed area on it. And then I picked it up with my stamp tool and masked off the roots on the bottom and stamped this so that it looks like the beavers have chewed this part of the tree as well. And if you've got a little area on the side that hasn't stamped perfectly, like this one, it's easy enough to fix. I'm just going to stamp one more of these in case I need it, and then I'll use a black gel pen just to fix any areas to make this look like a solid tree trunk. Then I added some sentiments inside those hearts. So I've got You and Me and Happy Valentine's Day. And then from Totally Awesome, I used the cattails and flowers. There are cattails in the Would You Be Mine stamp set, but I preferred these ones. And I also stamped that larger log and a couple of dragonflies too. Then I used the Swish and Pop pull tab set and lined this marker piece up into the middle of the card so that when I add the mechanism piece, the moving part will be in the center of this 5x7-inch card. And I like to do 2 of these tab pieces and glue them together just so that it's stronger and more robust for the recipient of the card. And then I used acetate, this is the Lawn Fawn acetate, to cut that lever piece. I like the Lawn Fawn acetate because it's a little bit thicker and it works well with interactive cards. And then I lined the mechanism up onto that first hole using tiny push pins. And then I attached the lever on the bottom. I had this idea to create an interactive card with the Would You Be Mine critters so that it looks like the beavers are chewing a tree. So I wanted there to be a tree on this main mechanism piece. So first I added some foam squares along the bottom just to make sure that my mechanism would still move with these foam squares on. And I cut them in half to put underneath that mechanism piece, the tab piece. And I'm just checking to make sure that it still moves here. And then once I was happy that it still moved smoothly, I added another layer of foam squares so that there's 2 layers altogether. And then I could start adding in my stamped images. So what I did is I put the smaller tree trunk at the bottom, and I wanted this to be in the center of the card there. And I just glued it underneath that clear acetate piece, just using some regular white glue. And then that other tree that we used the masking on is going to go on that clear lever. So when the two pieces are together and the receiver of this card pulls the tab, it will look like the tree is falling over. So I just used double-sided tape to put the tree trunk onto that lever piece, the clear acetate piece. And then I lined it up so that it was in line with that piece we've already glued onto the card. So this worked really well, but I did notice when I started testing it out that sometimes that clear acetate lever would get caught underneath the tree trunk. As you can see there, it's because those roots are quite sharp. So what I did is I added a bit of washi tape underneath that clear acetate piece so it covers up those roots, just so that it doesn't get caught. And it's low enough on the card that it won't show when that water is placed on top. And now you can see the mechanism works well without getting caught underneath those tree trunks. So then I cut off that extra bit of acetate on the top of the log and added on my water on the bottom of the card. So once I've just checked that it's still working, I'm going to add on my stamped images. So I created a fun scene with these beavers, and I thought it would be nice to add in those beautiful flowers from Totally Awesome. So I put those on either side of the tree, and then also these little dragonflies that just help to complete the scene. And they have these cute little lines that you can put so that really emphasizes those dragonflies so they don't get lost in that background area. So I'm just going to add those cattails in there and then the flowers as well. And I'll glue all these images on with white glue and make sure that the mechanism is still working. And then I just added a sentiment. This is actually 2 sentiments from that Would You Be Mine stamp set. And I used some Kitsch Flamingo Distress ink on the background. That's the pink color there. So then I put double-sided tape on the back of this card and put it onto a 5 by 7 inch card base. And before cutting the tab piece on the side of the card, I decided to add the insert on the inside. So I used that other image of the 2 beavers with the heart and glued that on the inside of the card. And I decided in the end to leave this a little bit longer than normal so that the recipient could pull this tree either way. So when the tree is perfectly straight, the tab piece will stick out about 1 inch out the side of the card. And then I just glued the arrow on the side. I used a bit of holographic paper. And now you can see the finished card, which is just perfect for Valentine's Day. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this video inspiring. If you haven't already, please subscribe so that you're notified whenever I post a new video. Have a crafty day!